Yesterday, Leslie Jones, who plays Patty in new Ghostbusters, quit Twitter. This was due to a sudden increased flood of vocal hatred and harassment. Now, whatever you thought of Ghostbusters, whether you loved it, thought it was good, just okay, or downright hated it, that's absolutely fine. You may hate it because of how it took something you loved, twisted it, and delivered something else, garnering modest critical praise and box office success in the process. I sympathise, that's how I feel about the X-Men movies for reasons I've long documented. You may even be among those who hated Ghostbusters because you perceived it as pushing a liberal agenda, namely placing women, people of colour, and homosexuals in traditionally straight, white, male roles. And there's merit in that assertion. It is indeed deliberately pushing against the status quo. Hell of a lot of people consider that to be a good thing. But there's darker, more extreme reactions here from a certain contingent using fandom as a weapon. This is the pronounced difference between not liking a movie and actively pursuing and bullying its stars for being women, for being people of colour, for being gay. There are only two reasons to do this. One, the misguided idea that if you frighten and torment enough women or minorities, these changes that you don't want to see happening will cease and roll back. Two, you are a genuinely nasty, sadistic person with little to no empathy and are using the anonymity the internet provides to hurt people without consequences. At no point does being a fan of the original Ghostbusters enter into this. I've read articles stating that the writer is now becoming less enamoured of the 1984 version because of the Ghost Bros. But this hasn't affected me in the same way. I still adore the original and I still really like this new one. Because I do not equate their behaviour with anything approaching love, which is what fandom should be, as opposed to obsession, which is what fandom gone wrong becomes, or outright hate, which is what this is, using the excuse of fandom as a stick to beat women into submission with. I've seen women get told to just ignore them. This is akin to just ignoring cancer, which is an apt parallel for what these individuals uniting under many banners become. They are a naturally occurring sickness in the human race and need to be dealt with. This behaviour is not the least bit new to our species. It's been around since before the Stone Age. It's only now that they can utilise the internet and oppress on a far wider scale with a sense of twisted unity that we are getting some of the most memorably horrible responses to media and events. It's always the same kind of people at the core of every hateful overreaction. It's not 100% the same people each time, but there's recurring kinds of people at the core. Think of every loud, ugly, ongoing online situation for the past few years. Consider who was the angriest, who was at the centre of each one. And when they're no longer allowed to play with everybody else, who screams the loudest about freedom of speech? So now, Leslie Jones is gone from Twitter because of them, a strong, proud, confident black woman. Doesn't matter how strong or proud you are, a deluge of unmitigated hate will make you quit eventually. And when you do show that you've been negatively affected by this treatment, suddenly you're playing the victim as though nobody is ever really hurt. It's all an act to get sympathy. Same as nobody ever does anything nice for someone else without it masking a self-serving reason. Same as anybody saying Black Lives Matter or not all Muslims are like this must surely be claiming no lives aside from Black Lives Matter and I'm the only Muslim who's not like this. Same as any woman brave enough to actually report being raped is obviously only out to destroy the reputation of a man. In their underdeveloped minds, everybody is as nasty and selfish as they are. I do feel sorry for them. That's a terrible worldview and they didn't get the way they are without some serious neglect or abuse or both. Except that the ones who are born to privilege or adulation their whole lives and are convinced they can do no wrong and neither can those they approve of. I feel sorry for those guys too, although I still think they're utterly wretched and vile. There's a world out there to embrace and learn about, billions of other people whose lives, histories and feelings they could take into account, and they're fixated on their one game, or their one TV show, or their one movie, or their one Joker. And that's only the guys who identify themselves as fans and aren't just in this to hurt women. Most of humanity will stay out of this argument. I'm choosing to be someone who doesn't just stand by and tell those affected by this to ignore them. That doesn't mean wading into the hateful and picking fights with every single one of them or screaming about my liberal agenda, which, by the way, is as revolutionary as don't be dicks to each other. Sometimes it can just mean showing support and solidarity for those who get hurt. And sometimes I will have to call out bullshit behaviour. This cancer needs us to ignore it in order to overcome the better nature of the human race. It needs our complacency, our fear, and unwillingness to get involved in order to thrive. So what I'm saying to you all is that if you have the opportunity to defend or support someone who needs it, do what feels right rather than just ignoring the problem for a quiet life. Someone's being abusive online, confront them and report them. They need to be told by people without fear. In real life, it's even scarier, so you're going to have to weigh up what you are able to do. Just letting the victim of abuse know that they are not alone and that someone sees what is happening is better than nothing at all. Don't go overboard, be proportional in your response, and don't elect to counter bullying with more of the same abuse. What happens to one of us happens to all of us.